Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 83, recording on Wednesday, May 14th. It's schedule release evening. The Minnesota Timberwolves play Game 5 against the Golden State Warriors. I will be there, headed out in a few, but want to record a quick podcast, obviously, post-schedule release. So I'll run it down really quick, then I'll go individual games. Week 1, at Chicago, Monday Night Football. Week 2 versus Atlanta, Sunday Night Football. Week 3 versus Cincy. Week 4, Pittsburgh and Dublin. Week 5, Cleveland and London. Week 6, bye. Week 7, the Eagles at home. Week 8, the Chargers on Thursday Night Football in Los Angeles. Week 9, at Detroit. Week 10, Baltimore at home. Week 11, Chicago at home. Week 12 at Green Bay. Week 13 at Seattle. Week 14, the Commanders at home. Week 15 at Dallas, Sunday Night Football. Week 16 at New York, the Giants, Brian Daboll's crew. Week 17, Detroit at home on Christmas. Wow. Week 18, Green Bay at home. That's the schedule. I'm going to go game by game. We'll do some predictions without any, prep beforehand. We'll count them all up. I'll do a predicted record. But first, before we get to that, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like. We appreciate you guys being here. Cannot thank you enough for the support. This show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area, run by some people who are going to be at a lot of these games on this schedule. Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, a great crew over there. Christy at the front desk of the Washington location, who helps me with my account. She is very much in tune to the schedule release. So, please go check out First Resource Bank. All right, so some predictions and some analysis. We'll do analysis first on each game, and then I'll give a little prediction just off the cuff. Wasn't prepared. We'll tally it all up, and then I'll give you guys a record. All right, week 1 at Chicago. I mean, man, I can't think of a more juicy way to start. J.J. McCarthy's family lives about 30 miles from it's not 30 miles, 30 minutes from Soldier Field. This guy grew up going to high school with a lot of Bears fans. The Bears just drafted Colston Loveland, who is one of J.J. McCarthy's better friends and most trusted reception options at Michigan. Ben Johnson's debut, obviously with what he might be able to do with Caleb Williams, they have, just like the Vikings have, shored up the interior of the pocket with Jonah Jackson, with Drew Dahlman. It's about everything you could want for a week 1 matchup. Chicago, prime time, Monday Night Football, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, whatever you guys feel about them, when they call these games, it's always big. I mean, you might have the Manning cast there, so you got, the Mannings talking to Kevin O'Connell with insights in that first week. It's just with what the buildup probably is going to be throughout the entire training camp into that first game, it is as good as it gets. I'm here for a prediction as well. So I'll say week 1 at Chicago. I haven't seen enough of Chicago and Ben Johnson in that defense to make me think that they could take down a Vikings team that has been more consistent over time. So, for me, it's going to obviously be about, eliminating and preventing turnovers. When the Vikings have broken even or won the turnover margin with Kevin O'Connell at the helm in the regular season, they are 30-3. Do that, they can win this game. I also expect this to be a nice unveiling of a couple of things. Of one, the Vikings revamp trenches. Like, what can they do defensively with the interior, Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen? You hope those guys are obviously healthy at that point. And then on offense, how effectively can you push the opposing team in short yardage and be able to run the football with Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones? So week 1, Chicago, can't wait for that. And I'll predict a Vikings victory to start. So it's 1 in the win column. Week 2, Atlanta, Sunday Night Football. I mean, I made a joke. I was on with Meat Sauce Paul Lambert, did a little KFAN schedule special, and I made a joke to him like, has Atlanta ever been on Sunday Night Football? They probably were with Mike Vick, maybe some Matt Ryan days, but I mean, it's a fascinating one because you had Michael Penix, who was drafted in the 2024 NFL Draft ahead of JJ McCarthy, and now JJ's home opener comes against that quarterback and a Falcons team that I mean they're odd, they're interesting. They have a new defensive coordinator and Jeff Ulbrich, whose son is capable of prank calling certain quarterbacks, but they added in the draft, they made the massive trade for James Pierce, Walker from Georgia, so maybe they'll have more juice at edge. They'll probably, they still have Jesse Bates and AJ Terrell who can, complicate some things on the back end. So, I mean, that environment, Sunday Night Football, first time this home crowd gets to see JJ McCarthy, that's pretty electric stuff. So I imagine that environment will be pulsating with energy, and I will probably be pacing throughout the press box in the lead up to the game. But I'm similar to week one. I'll predict a Vikings victory in week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons. All right, week 3, Cincinnati. I mean, man, Joe Burrow coming to town against the Brian Flores defense. So you got the ultimate processor against the defense that makes it very hard for quarterbacks to process. And I don't know really why I started there, because you got Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. I mean, these guys do very similar guaranteed money in their contracts. They shared a receiver room together at LSU. Two very different personalities. Jamar, much more vocal, much more willing to tell you what he's capable of in your face. Justin, more of the, quiet assassin behind the scenes who was willing to play multiple spots for LSU when they needed a player to do that. Cincinnati's defense, they've adjusted defensive coordinators. Lou Anarumo is no longer the guy. There's been contract questions of late with their their best player on defense and their edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. And there's a lot of youth there, but it's a lot of questionable talent. So you really would think that the Vikings receiving core, with a healthy TJ Hockenson now to start, and Jordan Addison, would be able to get at that Bengals defense. So at home, riding high off the first 2 wins in this prediction, I'll say it's a victory in week 3. So it's a 3-0 start. And I'm Purple Dinosaur podcast here. But I mean, it's how I feel just off the cuff. Week 4 at Pittsburgh, which is not in Pittsburgh. It is in Dublin, Ireland. I mean, first of all, I don't know. I'm probably gonna have to bring the golf clubs. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe got to find a way, use some connections. The Graham McDowells, the Rory McIlroys, the Shane. I mean, I'll probably hit up Rory, see where he recommends playing over there in the lead up. But cannot wait to have some pints over there. Hopefully, I imagine there will be a locked and loaded contingent of Vikings fans over there. I selfishly, obviously, love the international stuff because I get to go to Europe, and why would you not enjoy that? But I've seen some people on social media like questioning why the Vikings would be willing, or just questioning how this might affect the season as a whole. What I'd say is 2 things. I mean, the Vikings have got, they've played overseas twice since Kevin O'Connell took over and Tyler Williams has become the director of player health and performance. The guys have not really missed a beat. Now, and the offense against the Jets was not spectacular, but the weather was terrible, and that was just kind of a day. The receivers didn't perform really well against those corners, so I didn't really chalk that up to jet lag or anything like that. So that's the first aspect. They have been prepared both times they've gone over there. The other aspect that I feel like is relevant to mention is like those trips build camaraderie. They really do. And that's not, there's no analytic to be able to tell you that building camaraderie could lead to success late in the season. But I really like one of the tenets that has made these Vikings season 2 of the 3 of Kevin O'Connell's time here, as special as they've been, has been the chemistry of the roster and those types of trips where you're spending time with people in hotel rooms, in foreign play. Like I strongly believe that stuff can build chemistry and togetherness and all of that. And then you add in the fact that now 2 of the AFC North matchups that are supposed to be in away stadiums. The Pittsburgh, obviously, their environment is spectacular. And Cleveland, even as bad as they've been, I mean, the dog pound gets pretty raucous. So to have those games overseas where the Vikings have more and more developed an international fan base, I see it as a positive. I mean, it's positive for the Vikings business. It grows the brand. And I know some of the local Minnesotans are always frustrated that they don't get enough national attention, but this is a way to just generate more attention on this team. So it makes sense to me. And at Pitt, they're playing Pittsburgh, the Steelers. I mean, we can talk about the Steelers for a second. Who is their quarterback going to be is the question to start. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Who the heck knows? If Rodgers really wanted to be there at this point, I think could have made that happen, personal decisions aside. If it's Mason Rudolph, you feel pretty good. If you're Brian Flores, if it's Will Howard, I mean, who knows? Like, who knows? Maybe the Steelers go crazy and Aaron Rodgers isn't there and they trade for Kirk Cousins and it's Kirk Cousins in Dublin. I don't know. But not knowing who their quarterback is going to be leads me to predict the Vikings to win the game. I know it's London. I know it's Dublin. I know it's overseas. I'm 0 for 2 twice already. I know it's overseas and all that. And I feel a bit scared projecting a 4-0 start to this season. And but we're gonna do it. Week 5, Cleveland and London. I mean, one of the benefits of already being in Dublin is you just pop over to London. There's no jet lag. You get familiar with the environment. They have with having traveled to London twice over the last 3 years, everything has been very set in terms of where they'll practice, how they'll go about it, how they'll commute. All of that is pretty set in stone. So just not a bunch of concerns from that from that aspect. Cleveland, I mean, who is their quarterback going to be? You can ask the same question. Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? Is it going to be Shador? Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel? Is it going to be Joe Flacco? Who the heck knows? Now, their defense and Jim Schwartz, I mean, they'll get after you now. Myles Garrett is not going to be an easy challenge. We'll see at that point in time. Is Christian Darrisaw back? How does he look? That's a very relevant question for that game. It'd be really fun to see those two go up against one another. But I mean, Cleveland's back in, leaves questions. They're not going to have elite linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah all season. That definitely is something to keep eyes on. If it's Carson Schlesinger, who they took pretty high in the draft, that would be pretty interesting. But I'm just not going to pick the Cleveland Browns to beat the Minnesota Vikings, even if it's in London and even if the Browns are the de facto home team. I'm just not going to do it. So that's a 5-0 start. That would be a 5-0 start 2 years in a row, which would be absolutely ridiculous. So I think I went through this on my own for a story at The Athletic about the schedule release, and I did not have a 5-0 start. So I'm already altering my opinions. Week 6 bye, that'll be needed for everybody. I mean, me and you guys who are fans over there recovering from jet lag, you're going to need that bye. You're also going to need the bye because of what's about to be forthcoming. This next stretch is, I mean, I said this with Sauce Paul Lambert earlier in our KFAN deal, but I can't remember a 4-game stretch that this Vikings team has had that is as just formidable from an opponent standpoint as this one. Week 7, hosting Philadelphia. Why this game is at noon, I have absolutely no idea. But, I mean, Philly's defense needs no introduction. All you got to do is have watched the Super Bowl to know how menacing they can be, both with their front. I mean, their linebacking core is ridiculous. Zach Bond, who Brian Flores really liked before the Eagles signed him. Jahad Campbell, who they took in the first round because, of course, they took a potentially elite linebacker. And then Nakobe Dean from Georgia was incredible last year before he got injured. Their cornerbacks, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, those young guys are just special. And then, yes, they lost Milton Williams. They lost Josh Sweat on their front, but they always are developing. Moro Ojomo, that guy's menacing. They still have Jalen Carter. They still have Jordan Davis. Nolan Smith Jr. at edge from Georgia has really, really come on. So it's that is just not an easy test. And then on the other side of the football, oh, by the way, Saquon Barkley will be running at you. They still have A.J. Brown. I am curious without Kellen Moore. I know they promoted from within, but I'd be curious what that offense looks like because I think Kellen Moore is pretty sharp. And they Jalen Hurts, while he has really showed up in some of these big games, him against Brian Flores, I just still feel okay about that. Ultimately, maybe because I've been too optimistic to this point, I'll say the Vikings lose. So it's 5-1 after week 7. The tough part is you play a physical, hard-nosed, talented opponent like that, and then you got to come back in 4 days and play another physical, well-coached opponent in the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously, the headline of this one is Jim Harbaugh going up against the kid who helped win him a national championship at Michigan. They did it together. Jim has been nothing but complimentary and praise worthy of JJ and the type of player he is, the type of person he is. That will generate, obviously, the headlines going into that game. But short week. I mean, the Chargers offensive line is physical. They play a physical brand of football with Greg Roman as their offensive coordinator. They drafted maybe my favorite prospect in the whole draft to watch, Omarion Hampton, who I'm going to take early in fantasy. I recommend you guys do as well. Yes, their receiving core is still a question. Yes, defensively, talent-wise, I mean, they've taken hits for sure. But I really like Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator. And on a short week going to LA, I mean, two things. One, please nobody in that game who is as important as Christian Darrisaw was when he got hurt last year in this game in week 8, Thursday night in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. Hopefully nobody gets hurt like that. And then hopefully if there's a pass to catch in the red zone, like the one Jalen Naylor missed last year against the Rams, the Vikings can make that catch. But just in terms of coming off the Eagles game, short week, Chargers, I'm going to, go against the grain probably. I'll pick the Chargers on Thursday night in that game. So the Vikings are 5-2 after week 8 in this prediction. Week 9 at Detroit. Detroit for me this year is a question mark. Obviously, talent-wise, they've still got everything offensively. And defensively, I mean, Aiden Hutchinson being back is going to be massive for them. They swapped cornerbacks essentially, going, with DJ Reed, who is a man cover corner, who can play for them. Tyrion Arnold, who knows what he is in his second year. Brian Branch, I love him as a player, but they're a question mark for me because of the coordinators. Obviously, you lose Aaron Glenn, you lose Ben Johnson. They promoted from within. Do those guys, does their offense coordinator, I believe his name is Johnny Morton, does he gel as well with Jared Goff? Is he as creative as Ben Johnson was? Does he use the running backs as well as Ben Johnson did? And then defensively, are they still as aggressive as they were? Are they more creative than they were? Are they, as physical and holdy down the field as they often are? That for me is an interesting question. At Detroit, this is coming off the mini bye. I could easily pick the Vikings here, but because I've been optimistic to start, I'll take Detroit. So this is a tough little stretch here. The Vikings have, in this prediction, maybe I made it too harsh now. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 5-3 after week 9. Week 10, I mean, it doesn't get any easier. This stretch, I mean, good freaking Lord. Baltimore, the Ravens, Man, Lamar Jackson in year three with offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I mean, Lamar and Brian Flores have had some interesting games in the past. I think there was a game years ago where Brian Flores ran like 30 snaps of cover zero against Lamar. So I've never seen Lamar in person. We'll be pumped to get to watch that matchup. Their defense is obviously they've added to with Malachi Starks. Their offensive line, kind of a question. Injury wise, they've dealt with stuff over time. Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. So health will obviously be massive for both teams kind of at this point in the season. But Lamar is probably going to be too difficult for me to pick against. I'll say the Ravens get that one. The Vikings are 5-4, 4-game slide here. Now they're going to get one back week 11 against Chicago at home. You would hope, like, for me, the way I think about this season, just with JJ McCarthy specifically, is just get your feet wet through week 6. If this team, I predicted that they win the first 5 games. That's probably foolproof with the guy who's playing his first season at quarterback, even for as high as the Vikings have spoken about JJ, and as high as I know you guys as fans are on him. Predicting winning the first 5 games a lot, but if you could just get through that stretch, get your feet wet, find your footing, kind of for the middle, gauntlet that is, and then the back part of the season, I think that's best case scenario. Chicago at home, week 11. We talked about the Chicago matchup. I mean, you'd wonder, where is their offense and where is their defense kind of in the middle of the season? Have they found ways to utilize a Luther Burden? Has their defense kind of taken to that new system under Dennis, whose last name I'm forgetting. But week 11, the Bears, I'll say that's a Vikings win. They're 6-4. Week 12 at Green Bay. This could probably go either way. It's interesting that this is the first matchup with the Packers. It's week 12. The second one is week 18, obviously, and we'll see if that game, are starters resting in that game. Who the heck knows? But at Green Bay, 6-4. The Packers, I was looking at the roster recently. Like, their cornerback group, still a question mark. Offensive line, still a question mark. Defensive line, the talent is there, but it just they didn't really infuse that group with any crazy pass rushing prowess. So, and then Jordan Love, like, what is this guy? Is he an elite quarterback? Is he Jekyll and Hyde? Like I've said publicly before, there are times where I watch Jordan Love and I think, man, he could look as talented as anybody. And there are other times I watch him where I'm like, gosh, this is so difficult to watch. So week 12 at Green Bay, the Vikings have had success there. And so I'll say win. I'll say, the Vikings moved to 7-4 after week 12. Week 13 at Seattle, the Sam Darnold matchup will be quite interesting. That team and their offensive line just does not give me enough confidence going against this Brian Flores pass rush to where I'd be willing probably to pick Seattle. So the Vikings, it's such a passage of time moment to go back there after Sam had the game and the finish that he did last year in Seattle. Be kind of a weird experience, but I always enjoy that trip. I've told people, ask me all the time, like, what is one of your favorite stadiums to go visit? That is one for sure. And that town is very, you either seem to love it when you go or you don't like it at all. It's rainy. It's the weather's terrible. It's major West Coast, whatever. But I enjoyed my time there last year. So I will be looking forward to that. Week 14, Washington. So I'd say win against Seattle. So I think that puts them at 8-4 in this projection. Week 14, the Commanders come to town. Jaden Daniels, another quarterback, picked ahead of JJ McCarthy. Washington coming off the exceptional season that they are. That team tends to be pretty well coached. I know people have their opinions on Cliff Kingsbury, but just as an offensive mind, he's been pretty effective. And then Dan Quinn has run defense pretty well. They've made some, aggressive moves. They acquired Marshawn Lattimore last year, a cornerback, Deebo Samuel this offseason. That's going to be a team entering the season with pretty high expectations. Could the Vikings win the Week 14 game against the Commanders? I think absolutely. Because I've been pretty optimistic here for a stretch, I'll probably say they lose that one at home. Week 14, 8-5. Week 15 at Dallas, Sunday Night Football. I've never been to Jerry World, so I can't wait for that one. Just to be in that environment. Who the heck knows what the Cowboys are going to be this year with under Brian Schottenheimer, with George Pickens in the fold. That defense, I mean, where is Trayvon Diggs? Where is Micah Parsons' health? What does that unit look like? It's just such a wild card for me. And I Sunday Night Football, that'll be fun. It'll be the first check-in for SNF since week 2. So how things change both for the Vikings from week 2 to week 15 with the stretch that they have, it's going to be very interesting. I'll say the Vikings beat the Cowboys week 15, and that puts them at 9-5. Week 16 at the Giants. Man, is Brian Daboll going to be the coach at this point? Is Joe Shane going to be the GM? Who's the quarterback for the Giants? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Jackson Dart? None of those guys I'd feel any comfort with going up against Brian Flores. And so for me, it would be impossible, even in New York, even with, that defensive front it's something with Brian Burns, with Dexter Lawrence, with Abdul Carter, with Kayvon Thibodeau. That's nothing to sniff at. And Malik Neighbors is really dynamic and will test the Vikings' coverage abilities, but would pick the Vikings in that game. Believe that puts us at 10-5. Optimistic Ollie here on the Alec Lewis Show. Week 17, Detroit on Christmas. Sorry, Mom, I will not be home for Christmas this year. I will be covering a football game at 3:30 and riding into the evening. But hopefully the Vikings press box at US Bank Stadium has a great spread, as they always do. I expect them to show up. I would also expect the Vikings team to show up in a game that could be really important depending on what happens with this division. I've said this many times now already, but you could tell me that this division ends up Vikings, Packers, Lions, Bears, and I'd understand it. You could tell me it ends up Packers, Bears, Vikings, Lions, and I can understand. You could mix and match those four any way you want to, and I'd probably understand why you did that. Detroit at home on Christmas. I'll say that the Vikings lose this game, and Detroit, maybe turnovers are the reason. That's the thing with Detroit. It's turnovers. It's stopping Jahmyr Gibbs. Those have been the Vikings are 1-5 against Detroit since Kevin O'Connell took over. So I'm just going with the probabilities, and I don't want to go, 12-5 with a first-year starting quarterback seems a little aggressive. But Week 18 against Green Bay, I'll say the Vikings win that one. So that's 11-6 is the prediction here. I feel like that'd be a pretty good way to go. It would be a lot of ups and downs just going through it. You'd have the first 5 wins, the next 4 losses, then you kind of stabilize down the back stretch, and you hope that you're you'd be peaking then going into the playoffs. But 11-6, I would hope that at that point, JJ has had a pretty solid year, so you feel really optimistic. And then the other aspect would just be health and durability. What does that look like going to the playoffs? But 11-6, you'd have to feel pretty good about that. That'd be 3 of 4 seasons with Kevin O'Connell with double-digit wins. And then it becomes a question of, can you do what you have not done, which is one when it matters most in the playoffs. But, it's a tough schedule. There's just no other way around that. That's the way the NFL wants this stuff to be. When you've had a good season, your schedule is going to be tougher. It's also much tougher when you're not facing the AFC South and you got Tennessee and the Indianapolis and Jacksonville as kind of a buffer in the middle of the schedule. But really, really looking forward to it. I'm going to take a few questions here, and then I'll hop out and get to the Wolves game. Do people, this comes from Purple Nurple on social media, do people internally view the Europe trip as an advantage or a disadvantage? It's probably, they will choose to view it as an advantage because of what the crowd will be, because of the camaraderie that will be generated, and then because of what it does from a business standpoint for this organization. Purple Nurple, you say On one hand, 2 road games turn into a neutral site. We should be more time zone adjusted. On the other hand, have to spend 10 days abroad with likely suboptimal equipment and facilities. I mean, like I said, kind of in talking through it, they have done this 2 times in the past 3 years. And so they will know from an equipment standpoint and a facility standpoint what will set them up for the most success. I do think what you mentioned as far as both the Browns and both the Browns and the Steelers getting adjusted to the time zones. I think that's relevant. And then again, I just expect the crowd to be very good because of what it was last year. I know the Vikings were the home team, but you just could sense that the Vikings are a relevant team in the international market. Next question comes from Anthony Casper. After the schedule goes public, do you see the Vikings having 15 or 16 wins? In all seriousness, love the show. I appreciate that, Anthony. Thank you for listening, for reading, all that stuff. 15 or 16, and I mean, it would be, we're off the charts. I mean, Minnesota, I was talking with a buddy earlier today, and he was joking. He said this, he said this with a joking manner, but he's like, with what Edwards is doing, what JJ could be, this could be the golden age of Minnesota sports. And I mean, he's not wrong, but you just want it to go good for you guys because you deserve it. So that's what I'd say. Let's see here. Vikes fan, do you believe the Vikings will look to add another veteran cornerback before training camp starts? If so, do you have any names you could share? I'm not there right now. Like, could they? Absolutely. Do I feel like they think they need to do that right now? Or even around training camp starting? Not yet. I mean, we'll see what the health looks like for Byron Murphy and Isaiah Rodgers and Okudah and Mekhi Blackman and Dwight McGlothern, potentially Zamiah Vaughn from Utah. But, I mean, they believe in Isaiah Rodgers. They still have faith in what Mekhi Blackman can be. Dwight McGlothern, who was an undrafted player last year, was impressive. So Jeff Okudah, I know what his past has been, but I think there's an optimism in terms of maximizing his skill set. Let's see. JT Thomas, 3 to 5 guys on the roster bubble, players who are on the team who could be cut or players who have a chance to make the team. Well, I'd say there are some undrafted players who are going to have a shot, and that's Tyler Batty from BYU. That's obviously Silas Bolden from Oregon State, Texas, the returner. That's Zamiah Vaughn, who I just mentioned from Utah. The linebackers are an interesting group. And Kobe King, who was taken the 6th round, obviously. But then you got like an Austin Keys type of player for special teams. And then as far as like, I mean, that's going to push Bo Richter. It's going to push Gabe Murphy. It's going to push, the linebacking core and that type of stuff. The edge rusher room, the interior defensive line room. I mean, Taki Taimani was an undrafted player last year who made it. So it's just really competitive on the back end of the roster. Eric Hansen, what is your favorite social media schedule release trope? He says his personal favorite is asking folks on the street who know nothing about football to name the opponents just off the logo. Yeah, that's the Titans, and they're the best by far. Like, it's just exceptional. I still watch those videos and laugh because it should be fun. Like, the Chargers do a great job. The Vikings have done a good job in the past, but yeah, that's the one. The Titans asking people on Broadway who are drunk logos that they have no idea about. Wins out, absolutely. Nick Miller asks, what game are you most looking forward to both professionally and personally? The easy answer professionally would be JJ McCarthy's debut week 1 in Chicago. So that's the easy one, but I'm gonna dig deeper. Let's see here. Professionally. Maybe the Ravens game, because I haven't seen Lamar play in person, and I just have a lot of respect for Todd Monken and what they do offensively and just the level of challenge that's going to be. I thought the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl last year. They obviously didn't. That game against Josh Allen, I mean, it was tight, but that's what I mean. Just that you want to see this team in the Vikings be tested as to the brink, and that would provide that. Personally, that's a good one as well. Another good question. I mean, the Europe trip hopefully will be spectacular. Dallas and Jerry World is definitely high on the list. I like Seattle. I like Seattle in that stadium. And I also will say, and I don't know what time, I gotta look this up real quick, what time that game is supposed to be. Because last year, the Vikings played Seattle in the morning, or excuse me, at like 1. And it's an afternoon. But when they played last year, they had a breakfast at that stadium with this peppered bacon. And I might have had 14 pieces. I mean, I told Dane Mizutani, I got back to the press box, and I told Dane Mizutani, the Pioneer Press, that I just had some of the best bacon I ever had, and I recommend him highly go get some, like, right that instant. And so hopefully they've got the bacon there again. So, yes, I'm choosing personal trips because of bacon. Absolutely. Tom Gardner, when are they going to stop doing the schedule release? Every other sport just releases it. Everything is leaked. There's no drama. It's dumb. The NFL is not going to stop doing something that gets them attention. Let's just leave it at that. Andrew Mitchell, why do you think the Vikings have so many primetime games for rookie quarterback? Seems odd. I mean, this is a team that won 14 games last year. It has a coach who was coach of the year, who, is first class in how they treat people. The fan base is very fervent. And then J.J. McCarthy, yes, he wasn't the first pick taken, but there is incredible interest in terms of what he can be. He obviously was a success. His brand was built on what he did at Michigan and winning a national championship and being a driving force for that team. So I just think there's such passion around and intrigue around what this team could be, what JJ could be, what Kevin O'Connell can do in his 4th year, that the national makes sense. And then, I mean, you're talking first game of the year, Ben Johnson in his first game in the division, primetime, like that makes sense. Jerry World, Dallas, they're going to get Sunday Night Football and stuff. But it makes for a lot of late night deadline writing stuff. But I always say, like, as a writers, if that's what I'm complaining about, that I got to watch a phenomenal matchup between two exceptional teams in primetime, that is the talk of the world, probably not going to complain about having to stay up a little bit late to do some writing, because that's my job. Let's see here. A couple more maybe. How much of a split do I expect Jones-Mason this season? I mean, I'd expect to be pretty close to 50-50. Maybe it's 60-40 Jones because of how much he's paid and what he provides in the passing game and how good of a pass protector he is. But you want him to be as healthy as possible. You want Jordan Mason to be as healthy as possible. They have some comparable and different skill sets. So I'd say like 60-40 for now. Nate asks, will Tommy Hill happen eventually, or has the Tommy Hill ship sailed away? Don't believe he's signed as an undrafted free agent. I mean, I'll say he's an undrafted player from Nebraska, high hopes, but I mean, there's a reason he wasn't drafted, and there's injury stuff, but there's also potentially more related to that. So that's just what I'd say there. And that'll probably do it for the question portion of episode 83 of the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you guys being here. Be curious in the comments what you thought of that prediction of what they can accomplish. And yeah, thanks for being here. This is always presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. And then if you're new here on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit the likes and all that. It helps us out. 83, the Alec Lewis Show. We might be back with something later this week. And then we'll be back with the 2-episode a week roll, as we always are. If you missed it, there's stories relentlessly at The Athletic. Had something early this week on expectations for JJ, had a full analysis of the schedule, and then potentially a fun feature for you Friday. So stay tuned to The Athletic. Stay locked into the Alec Lewis Show. Enjoy the Wolves game tonight, and we will talk to you guys very, very soon.